Okay.
Welcome to this PCD webinar, which is an advanced LinkedIn insight session. We have arranged this webinar due to demand from our members to understand more about the LinkedIn platform and how they can use it to further their business development. LinkedIn is the leading global business-to-business networking platform. It is used by over 600 million professionals worldwide, including many of our members. We are going to focus on, in the next 45 minutes, the key paid-for features that you might consider using to enhance your experience on LinkedIn and to drive new business results. We're delighted to partner with Graham Aiken on this insight session.
My name is Graham Aiken. In terms of my background, I've worked in the wealth management industry just over 15 years. I was a private banker with Coops in London, and then 7 years ago set up my own business. So my day-to-day business is helping private banks, wealth managers, asset managers, and increasingly the legal profession utilise LinkedIn. And my entire philosophy with utilising LinkedIn is how to use it as a marketing, business development and client acquisition tool. I've worked with clients both in the UK and overseas, and I've worked with approximately 5,000 wealth managers to date, and a number of my clients are starting to see tangible business results from embedding LinkedIn into their day-to-day activity.
We hope you enjoy the session. Get involved in the chat, the Q&A and the polls, and we'd love to hear from you to find out more about topics you're interested in on social media and otherwise.
Hi everyone, welcome. Great to have you on. We've had a fantastic response to this advanced LinkedIn session, which we're running in conjunction with Graham Aiken. First of all, before we start, I am going to just give you a quick walkthrough on the functionality of this webinar in case you haven't been before. So many people on the chat already, which is terrific. Hi, Jose Luis down in Guernsey, and Daryl King from NYC. It's terrific that you've managed to join us. We've got the chat function, which you can see, or people are already getting stuck into. Use that to put comments if you're struggling to hear anything or you need some support. Let us know. If you've got any comments about what we're doing, do chuck them down the chat. So I'm getting a bit of banter about my jazzy shirt. Well, I thought I'd raise the sartorial game. So thanks, Nick Tukin, for that comment. You've got your Q&A in there. You can stick questions into the Q&A function. We'll pick them up at the end. So do put Graham on his mettle as we go through and he presents his material. So there's going to be great opportunity to ask the questions you want answered. We've got some polls. And we'll just open up the session before we hear from Graham. We're just going to do a couple of polls so that we can get a sense of our audience, and as we settle in, we will can discuss some of the results. So I'm just going to ask the first question, which is whether you're currently paying for Premium or Sales Navigator, and I'm just going to start that now. That should pop up on your screen. You'll be able to answer whether you are already paying for Sales Navigator. Just let that run. Okay, so results coming through. So we've got a good number of Sales Navigator users, 20-odd%. So people looking to get a bit more. I'm a premium LinkedIn user. Found it incredibly useful over the years. We've got another question here that I'm just going to pop up, which is about how often you post content. So whether you post content daily, weekly, or monthly. So whether you're using LinkedIn just to view, to read, to understand, or whether you're actually using it to push out some of the messages that you're trying to communicate to other professionals and your customers. We'll digest those results in a minute, but we're seeing a lot of sort of weekly posters, weekly and monthly, really. Not many posting daily. It can be hard to find the content to get a message out every day, so that's quite interesting. We'll just actually ask this next one, which is what kind of content do you tend to post? Is it long form links to articles or videos? a lot of people that I speak to haven't really used the article function of LinkedIn, which is quite an interesting little tool. It's a very valuable one. So again, that's something that will be interesting to see. So we'll digest those results and we'll report back at the end. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Graham Aitken onto the webinar. Graham, we're going to hear from you now on your masterclass insight session. So this is just going to give you a little taster of the paid for functionality, the advanced functionality on LinkedIn. And I'm going to be chairing the Q&A and the chat, monitoring and putting questions up to you as we go. But otherwise, I will hand over to you to share your thoughts with this audience that's primed and ready.
Lovely. Thank you, David. I assume you can hear me?
Yeah, I hear you crystal clear. Thank you, Greg.
Excellent. And hopefully everybody can see the slide deck. Okay, good. Excellent. So good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are in the world. Great that you are here. As David mentioned in the intro, I have historically provided face-to-face LinkedIn workshops for wealth managers, private bankers, asset managers, etc. But today's a little bit different. And there's a couple of reasons we're running today's session. The first is David ran a webinar a couple of weeks ago talking about his proposition over the next few months. And one of the questions he asked through that session was, were people interested in LinkedIn advertising? And the answer came back, yes, people are interested in LinkedIn advertising. Second reason we're running this session is almost without fail, every single workshop I have ran in the past 8 years, the question comes up, do I need to pay for LinkedIn? And my plan is to answer that question in some detail today. So as it says on the cover sheet, an introduction to Sales Navigator and LinkedIn advertising. I'm going to spend the first few minutes just looking at the comparison between the free version of LinkedIn, premium version and Sales Navigator, because there are different levels that you can choose to pay for or not. So I'll have a bit of a deep dive into that. And then I'll give you a tour of what I think are Sales Navigator's top features. I know some of you are using Sales Navigator already, so hopefully this may serve as a nice refresher. Those of you who are obviously not using it, there might be a business case for yourselves to start using it going forward. We'll then have a look at the business case for advertising. So why advertise on LinkedIn? And there's a pros and cons to that. We'll then have a look at the different ad formats. We'll look at how they're priced, and we'll look at some couple of case studies as well in terms of return on investment. And then we'll save 10 or 15 minutes at the end for questions. That's broadly speaking, and what I would like to cover off in the next 45 minutes or so. I suppose the other thing I should say at this point is I obviously don't work for LinkedIn, nor am I compensated by LinkedIn to sell you guys advertising. So today is not about me selling my services to help you advertise. Today, I'm just trying to be completely objective, and I'll tell you what's good about advertising and what's bad about advertising. And obviously you can then make a decision for yourselves. So first of all, Sales Navigator and some of the other functionality and some of the other paid features. This is a comparison chart, which is easily accessible from Google. If you type in LinkedIn comparison chart, you can pull this off there. And I've just captured what I think are the highlights of this chart. So as we can see here, we've got about a dozen or so menu items down the left-hand side. And across the top, we've got the different versions of LinkedIn. So clearly, we've got free LinkedIn, we've got premium business, and they keep changing the price on that. But generally speaking, that is around about £30 per month per user. You then have Sales Navigator Professional, which is currently £69.99 per month per user. And then Team, which is about £100 per month. And then Sales Navigator Enterprise, and that price is based on talking to LinkedIn directly based on a volume of users. So we've got these different levels of LinkedIn. The vast majority of LinkedIn users worldwide, around about 80 to 85%, just use the free functionality. And generally speaking, for most LinkedIn users, the free functionality is more than enough. And generally speaking, I say to people, well, unless you understand the free functionality, first of all, then why would you upgrade? But David and I have really got the sense that actually most of you are probably fairly active, fairly regular LinkedIn users. And so you might be starting to think about, should I upgrade or not? So just taking some of these menu items down the left-hand side just to make the comparison. Who's viewed my profile? So on the free version of LinkedIn, you can see the last 5 people who viewed your profile. And on any of the other paid versions of LinkedIn, you can see everybody who's viewed your profile in the last 90 days. So that can be quite useful for some people if they want to see everybody who's been viewing the profile. But is that a reason in itself to pay for LinkedIn? Absolutely not. But then we have some of these more compelling features. So we have emails. And emails are essentially LinkedIn's branded messaging system. And on the free version of LinkedIn, you can only send an email to somebody that you're connected to. All right. Whereas on Premium Business and Sales Navigator, you can send either 15, 20, 30, or 50 emails, depending on which one you're paying for, to any LinkedIn user. And so this is.
Should I ask? Should we do a quick poll to see if anyone on the call has sent an email? I've sent emails before.
Yep.
You probably have. Should I just ask a quick poll to see?
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Email?
Yep.
So we've got a question coming up shortly that I will post. Okay. So that should pop up on everyone's screen just to say, have you ever sent an email? I imagine people have received them. Over time, if you're a regular LinkedIn user, have received them. Let's see. We can discuss the results later, Graham, but I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but it'll be interesting data to see if people have used it. Yeah,
I mean, emails are typically used by recruiters, but more so by other LinkedIn users as well. The basic idea behind emails is they allow you to message anybody on LinkedIn, even if you're not connected to them. And so that can be quite a compelling reason to pay for one of the premium features of LinkedIn.
So from 100 responses, 45 have sent an email and 50, the balance hadn't. So the majority hadn't sent an email, but a good portion of the audience here today have sent emails. Okay, all right. And the other thing to note on that, some of you may be aware, some of you may not, that if, for example, you're using Premium Business and you've got 15 emails per month, any unused emails roll over for up to 90 days. So you don't have to use 15 in one calendar month. Any unused ones do roll over. You have extended LinkedIn network access. So on the free version, you can only see your up to 3rd line connections, whereas any of the paid versions, you can see beyond your 3rd line connections. There are some sales specific search tools on Sales Navigator that you don't find on the premium version and you don't find on the free version. I'm going to touch on those in a few minutes. Saved leads can be quite useful on Sales Navigator. So once you run searches and identify people you'd like to engage with, you have the ability to save leads within those searches. And again, depending on which version of Navigator you pay for, and there's a credit for those 1,500, 5,000 or 10,000. And then some others as well, recommendations, territory preferences, custom lists. But really those first 5 are the major reasons to be paying for Sales Navigator. Something that isn't included on here, which I think is actually the most important reason to be paying for any of the premium versions, is something that LinkedIn called their commercial use limit. And on the free version of LinkedIn, if you run X number of searches per month, and they don't tell us what that X is, so if you run X number of searches per month, LinkedIn at some point in the month will actually block your search results. And it will say, basically, you've reached the commercial use limit, you need to pay us some money and pay for premium on Navigator. Anecdotally, I believe that seems to be around 100 to 120 searches per month. So if you're running lots of searches each calendar month, as you get towards the end of the month, you're probably going to find yourself getting blocked by LinkedIn. Whereas on the premium versions and Sales Navigator, you have an unlimited number of searches. There is no commercial use limit. And I think in my experience, in my business, that is the biggest reason to be paying for any of the premium versions of LinkedIn. The ability to run as many searches on a calendar basis each month as you like without getting locked out at all. So that's just a quick comparison of those between free Premium Business and Sales Navigator. What I just thought it useful, just spending 10 or 15 minutes just looking at Sales Navigator Professional. So that initial paid version of Sales Navigator, I'm subscribing to at the moment, and I would just thought it was useful to give everybody a quick tour of some of the features within Sales Navigator. So I'm just going to move across to LinkedIn now. We just had while you do that, Graham, we had a comment from Jake Little on the chat saying, it's crazy how few emails you get every month, because so it's quite an underutilized thing. I mean, I get the odd thing. It does catch your attention, so it's quite interesting that are there, and they're not actually overused, really.
No, they're not. That is a good point. And the open rate, and I'll talk about this in a few minutes, but the open rate on emails, according to LinkedIn, is around 80%, which I think might be a little bit high. I wondered whether to what extent they've manipulated that number, but even if it was 60 to 70%, that is significantly higher than another piece of junk mail arriving in your inbox, for example. So yeah, you're right. They do catch your attention, and they are massively underutilized. So let's have a quick look at Sales Navigator. So once you've paid LinkedIn $69.99 per month, you will then have a new little menu item over here on the right-hand side called Sales Navigator. And when we click on this little tab, it essentially gives us a whole new platform. So aside from your main LinkedIn screen here, you now have this separate tab with this whole other new LinkedIn platform, which again, like most LinkedIn pages, is quite busy. There's quite a lot going on. So I just thought it'd be useful just to break down some of the functionality. The biggest feature within Sales Navigator is the search capability. So you can search for what Sales Navigator called leads, we would call individuals, and what Sales Navigator called accounts, we would call companies. So you can search for leads and accounts, or you can search for individuals and companies. And a lot of these filters I'm going to show you are on the free version of LinkedIn, but there's a number of filters that are worth paying for. So I just thought I would take an example where perhaps you're looking to build relationships with chief investment officers. And I'm going to say I want to find those in the Paris area, and I would like them to be working in the insurance industry. So I'm looking for chief investment officers in the Paris area in the insurance industry. And Sales Navigator allows you to start targeting those particular demographics. And that is all done through, generally speaking, you can do it through a search box, but the better way to do it is through this All Filters tab here. So we click on All Filters, and I say, I want to look for lead filters. So I want to look for individuals. We click on that, and we then have about 30 different filters in here where you can start applying all of your demographic criteria. And what I just encourage you to do as I do this is just keep your eye on this number here. So it starts at 0, and as you start applying your search filters, this number will change. So for example, under geography, I'm going to search in the Paris area. So Greater Paris metropolitan region. I've now got 3.7 million people that meet my criteria. I then want to find people in the insurance industry. Okay, and so I've now got 74,000, etc. So as you start applying each of these search filters, it filters down and narrows down the search result for you. I'm going to look under relationship, and I'm going to find my firsts, and I'm going to find my seconds. And I've now got a much smaller 441,000. I'm just going to open that up to thirds as well. So we've got a bigger number. All right, we can search by keywords, for example. We can search by name, obviously here, first name and last name if you know the person. You can search profile language, so I could search in English or French, for example. Under these role filters here, we can search by, for example, seniority level. So in here, I might put CXO. I've now got 1,915. And then if you wanted to, you can give them a specific job title. So under title, I now might type in Chief Investment Officer. All right, and actually, I've only got 2 results. So I'm actually going to just take that out and just leave it as CXO. And I've now got 1,900 results. So I've got 1,900 people who are CXO in the insurance sector in the Greater Paris area. You can also search on job titles, function. So this might be any of those that are there: business development, IT, finance, operations, sales, etc. Company filters. So you've got company type. This is all around whether they're public or privately held or charities, etc. Size of company. So you may be looking to target particular sizes of companies, and some others down at the bottom here, when they became a member, or the types of keywords, etc. So all of those different filters to start finding those exact kind of demographics that you might be looking for to build relationships in your business. And I have to say, in 8 years of running workshops, it's very, very unusual to not find the demographic that you may be looking for. with a bit of perseverance and tenacity, you can find almost any type of demographic that you might be searching for. So as you can see there, 1,915 results. I then click on search, and I then have my search result. All right, of over 1,500 people. Down the left-hand side, you can filter it down even more if you want to. All right, so I've got my search results, and I've filtered that down as much as I like. Something that you also now have the ability to do on Sales Navigator is the ability to save that search. So I might not be thinking, okay, great, I've got my 1,500 people. I can't work my way through them all today. I need to work on that over the next few weeks. So I need to save that search in some way, and you can do that over here. So I'll click on Save Search, and then give it a title. So my CXO Insurance Paris. All right, and then you can set up an alert, either a daily, weekly, or monthly alert, so that you're alerted every time somebody new meets your search criteria. So not only is it saved for you, but it's updated for you as well. I think that is a fantastic tool. It's a filtered, updated database, essentially. All right, and then I would save that search there. On the free version of LinkedIn, you can actually save 3 of those searches. On Sales Navigator, you can have as many as you like. So I could save multiple searches in there. So CXO Paris, CXO London, insurance, etc. So you can have as many searches saved in there as you like. That then leaves us with our search result. And there's a few things we can now do with these people in the search result. And I'm just going to show you a couple of those because I'm conscious time's running away with us already. And let's just have a look for somebody in here. Let's just take Constance as an example, who's a second line connection to me. What you can actually now do with this search result is start segmenting it. And the way to segment that is by something called lists. So if we think about what we've done so far, we've essentially taken 700 million LinkedIn users, filtered them down using those lead filters. What you can then do is start filtering them down even more into different segments. So for example, Constance, I might be thinking, okay, of those 1,500 people, she looks quite interesting. I'm actually going to save her details into a new list. So I go save and then create lead list. And in this scenario, it might be CXO Insurance leads. All right, so I'm actually creating now a new lead list aside from the search result. I can then create and save. And you can see now Constance is then saved in that separate lead list. I might do the same with Pascal. So think, yeah, he looks quite interesting. I'm actually going to save him and I'm going to put him in my new lead list there, etc. All right. So you can save leads as well. That is a good way to start filtering down the 1,500 results, even more so into these filtered leads lists. So in my business, for example, I'm currently expanding my business into New York. So I've run searches on marketing professionals in New York who work in financial services. And then I've segmented those people down into a separate lead list. And those lists are accessed through this top menu bar here. So lists, and you can see there's the 2 that I've just saved in my insurance leads. And I've got my 68 prospects there in my New York list. So this is all about filtering down the searches and then segmenting it out even further into more qualified leads once you've done your research from those searches.
I guess, Graham, as well, it can help you understand the size of the market. If you're looking for a certain type of professional in a certain location, these kind of searches can tell you, given how widespread LinkedIn is, it will tell you whether in that particular location there is a good population of those type of people to go at. So as professionals on this call are trying to target certain types of intermediaries, they can use these searches as a kind of indication of market size. I mean, I've certainly done that when I was looking to grow PCD in certain cities. I think what could be quite interesting just to see quickly whether the people have done searches. I mean, comment in the chat if you've done searches on the free version of LinkedIn and found it to be a useful exercise. It'd be good to hear your thoughts. Graham, carry on.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's good for market intelligence. Yeah, if you're looking to expand, for example, David, I know last year you did some work. Was it Nigeria?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you could obviously run these searches through there, and David could get a feel for whether there's sufficient private client professionals in Nigerian cities, for example. So yeah, it's really good for market intelligence and market research. So that's the idea behind searches and then segmenting those search results out into separate lead lists. All right, and that really is the main functionality within Sales Navigator. I'll just show you a couple of other things that are quite useful. And let's just go back to that lady. Where's she gone again? Constance. So you can see there she's saved. The other thing I can obviously do, like the free version of LinkedIn, is go to her profile just by clicking on her name, which gives you a different design to the free version. And it's a little bit drier. It's not quite as interesting or visually appealing. And I don't know whether that's an intentional decision by LinkedIn or not. But if I wanted to, I could obviously go across to the free version of LinkedIn and look at her profile on the free version. So you can see here, I've saved her on the right-hand side. I can obviously unsave her by hovering over that, so removing her from that lead list. And then I spoke a few minutes ago about InMails. And this is the best page where if you're looking to use InMails, you'll be using them from this page. Because over on the right-hand side here, we have the ability to message Constance. And that is what LinkedIn called an InMail. I want to click on message, and I've got this box here where I can type a much longer message. All right, I can put in a subject name. It tells me how many InMails I've got left this month. All right, I can tailor my contact details as well. You can attach documents. So if you've got specific material that you would like to send to prospects on LinkedIn, perhaps a company brochure, a market outlook, some market commentary, all of that can be attached to an InMail, which you can't do on the free version of LinkedIn. So that is a good, really strong benefit to having Sales Navigator, is the ability to send these InMails. And obviously I've got some credit that's rolled over. So I've actually got 40 I could use up to the end of this month.
Graham, just had a quick question from Matthew Bugden, just saying, do the people on the list know that they're sort of filtered, or in the way that if you go on someone's profile, they can see if your settings are such, but with these lists, that's purely for your own market management, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything I've done so far, so running the search, segmenting into lead lists, etc. Constance and nobody else in that search result knows that I've done that. Constance clearly knows now that I've looked at her profile because I'm on her profile. But anything prior to that, no, you can run searches and those people don't know that they've appeared in the search result.
And another quick one from QJ also, just saying, is there any indication scoring how active someone is on LinkedIn? Like, is there a point in sending them a message? Because how do you assess that, whether they're an active user or not?
Yeah, and that is very much it's a subjective decision by you or by the person who asked the question, I suppose, David. It's a case of looking at the individual's profile and seeing if they've posted any content out recently, how many connections they've got. You know, I suppose the extreme example is if you look at somebody's profile, they've got no picture, and let's say they've got 20 connections, then it's probably a dormant or a very inactive account. But, you know, we can look at Constance's profile here. Let me just minimize that. We can scroll down. We can see, our shared connections. So you can see here, recent activity. She's not had any recent activity within the last 30 days. That's not unusual, but that's telling me actually she's clearly probably not on LinkedIn every day. Is she going to pick up my InMail? Maybe she will, maybe she won't. The great thing about InMails is if the person doesn't reply to it, you get the credit back to your monthly allowance. You only lose the benefit of the credit of an InMail if the person replies. Yeah, so there is that benefit to InMails as well. So no, to answer the question, there's no specific way of telling when somebody whether they're active or not. It's really around their recent activity and that kind of thing. So that's a major benefit to Sales Navigator, is the ability to send these InMails to people here.
Quick question from Francois saying, are people more inclined to respond to an InMail? What's your view on that?
Yeah, 100%. I think I said that a few minutes ago, didn't I? LinkedIn's view is the open rate on InMails is around 80%. They did some worldwide research and the open rate on InMails was around 80%. I think that's quite high. I wonder to what extent they manipulated that figure. In my experience, it's at least 60 to 70%. So I've done it in my business and I've done it for clients as well. And the open rate on InMail is at least 60 to 70%. So it's significantly higher than perhaps seeing somebody seeing an email in their inbox and ignoring it. So, you know, they're worth experimenting with at least. The other thing I should say, everything about these platforms, you can take out a 30-day free trial. So LinkedIn allows you to do that. And if you don't like it, cancel it on day 29. So, you know, I do think they're worth experimenting with free of charge for at least 29 days. And that really is about as far as I wanted to go with Sales Navigator today. There are lots of other filters. You can tag people. There are recommendations as well. So, for example, I think it's in here. Is it under lists or is it? I've moved it. I think I've moved it actually. Moved it somewhere. I can't just lay my hand on it. But once you've started running a number of searches, LinkedIn will learn about the kind of people you're looking to find, and it'll actually then start recommending people. So in addition to the people who've met your search criteria over a course of time, LinkedIn will then start recommending people that meet your criteria as well. So that is quite useful. So you know, there are a number of benefits to paying above and beyond the free version.
Great. Question from Rob Hodgson at Casino, just wanting to ask about whether you have advice on best practice for reaching out to private client prospects, you know, reach out to direct clients. I mean, I know you've trained a lot of bankers and wealth managers, Graham, on this area, whether this one for today or not, but what's your view on the best practice around direct prospecting on LinkedIn to high net worth?
Yeah. I mean, in my workshops, I tend to spend about 40 minutes on this, so it's probably not one for today, but it's a reasonable question. Clearly, within the UK and Europe, there are issues around GDPR as well, which again is not a subject for today. But the question from Casanova around approaching private clients directly, yes, you can do that. I know a number of firms and a number of advisors who are doing that. I think from a practical perspective, if you can offer some value at the outset, so in this initial in-mail communication, if you can offer some value to a prospect, that is what people like on LinkedIn. So if you have, for example, some market commentary, some market news, some coronavirus advice, some corporate brochure, for example, if you can offer some basic advice around what a will is or what an ISA is or what a pension is, you get the idea. Any sort of free generic advice that clearly isn't bespoke or tailored to that individual, people like that kind of thing because you're giving out a little bit without charging for them. So I think giving something of value within that in-mail message increases the chances exponentially of the person wanting to engage with you in some way. Right, that is about as far as I want to take it on Sales Navigator today. Let me just go back to my slide deck. Any other questions, David, on Navigator?
Yeah, there was one saying, are you limited to the types of files you can attach to in-mails, video size? Are you aware of any limitations?
That's a good question. So you can attach URLs, so you can attach web pages, you can attach PDFs, you can attach PowerPoints, you can attach videos, and there is a maximum file size, but unfortunately I can't remember what it is. But generally speaking, most of them are sort of major media, like I say, PDFs, PowerPoints, MPEGs, you can attach to in-mails.
So it's unlikely there's going to be any kind of professional content that is going to breach the barrier. It's going to probably be okay.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
A question from Daryl King over in New York, just saying about if you had 20 people that are target contacts, can you connect? Do you connect to them one by one, or how do you?
One by one. Good question, Daryl. Another really common question that I get in most workshops. You cannot mass connect to people, whether you pay for LinkedIn or not. So on any of the versions of LinkedIn, you cannot mass connect to people, which I know a lot of advisors like to do, but actually LinkedIn, for me, it's about individual relationships. But whether you're on the free version or the paid version, it's about connecting with people and tailoring each individual connection accordingly. So I suppose that's the quick answer to the question. There's the slightly longer answer to the question. There's a few things, I suppose. Another common question I do get is, once I've run a search, either on the free version or the paid version, can I export that search result into, for example, an Excel spreadsheet? Again, the answer is no. LinkedIn used to let you do that, but it was destroying their business because clearly they want you to retain people's information on LinkedIn. So you can export a list of your first line connections to Excel, but you cannot export search results into Excel or a CRM system, for example. So yeah, this is about individual, one-by-one, case-by-case engagement, whether you're on the free version or the paid version.
Another quick question from Pierre Dupont, just saying, Sales Navigator version allows you to get the email of the person on his profile. So
Yep.
Is it better to use that than, given the high percentage of opening in InMails, would you advise to use InMail more than is it better than the person's email to contact them?
I don't have a strong view on that. I guess my view is I think it's probably preferable to try InMail because the acceptance rate is a lot higher.
Yeah.
But personal circumstances, whatever you think is best, really, whether it's InMail or email. If you think the person, for whatever reason, is more receptive to open an email, then clearly take the conversation off LinkedIn and do it by email. But I think for the sake of having 20 InMails per month, which rolls over, I would definitely experiment with InMails and see what sort of acceptance rate you get.
Yeah. Final quick one here from Patrice, just asking, are the search filters able to narrow down your search according to types of services people might buy, or do you have to have a proxy? You know, when you're searching for something, do you have a view on how you can find a proxy to flush out the audience that you want to reach?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, that. It's a difficult one because the searches are obviously based on what people put on their own profile. And, you know, and is somebody going to say on their profile that they're looking to buy a particular product or service? Maybe, but probably not. So it's more about thinking about the demographic of the person, whether it's job titles, companies, locations, industries, job functions, seniority, etc. You could try keyword. So there is a keyword filter. You could just type in your keyword, whatever that may be, and see what comes up in the search result. That might be one way to do it.
Okay, great. Question from Tim Bailey about how does LinkedIn deal with GDPR, or what are the GDPR issues around LinkedIn?
Oh God, I haven't got time to answer that.
Okay, let's move on then. Let's move on. We'll come back to that, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, can I touch on at the end, or if there's a specific question about GDPR, drop me a message on LinkedIn and I'll answer it accordingly, because that's a whole other kind of can of worms that we haven't really got time to open today, unfortunately.
Let's press on.
Okay, so let's move on to something a little bit different now. Advertising on LinkedIn, which I know quite a lot of you are interested in. So Sales Navigator is clearly around you as an individual user deciding whether to pay for LinkedIn or not. Advertising, generally speaking, is done at a corporate level by corporate marketing teams, but some of it can be done at an individual level. And I'll try and cover off both of those themes today. So why advertise on LinkedIn? Why even bother? A few reasons. LinkedIn has now got 673 million members. It's actually closer to 680 million members in 200 countries. And that's still growing at the rate of 2 new profiles every 60 seconds. So every 60 seconds, 2 new profiles are created on LinkedIn. So very, very unusual now for a country to not have at least a number of LinkedIn members, 200 countries worldwide. Advertising allows you to target via all of those search filters I showed you on Navigator. You can then target through advertising. So for example, job title, function, marketing, sales, etc., seniority level, company size, industry, location, and keyword, and a number of others as well. So gender, for example. So on advertising, you can place advertising based on whether they're male or female, obviously. So multiple targeting characteristics. Customized budgeting. So we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but you can set your own budget either on a daily basis or a monthly basis or a couple of other ways of doing it. So you can customize how much you want to spend and control that accordingly. There's a different types of ad formats, which we'll talk about in a moment. Biggest downside is there is ROI potential, but it can become very expensive. LinkedIn is probably one of the most expensive platforms amongst the major social media platforms. In fact, I think LinkedIn is probably the most expensive, but it's the most expensive because of those first 4 bullet points there. Yeah, it's reach, it's targeting, the customization, and the different types of ad formats. So let's just have a quick look at what these different types of ad formats are. And all of these, when you see them, you'll think, oh yeah, I've seen one of those in the past, but you probably didn't realize perhaps what it was. So let's just have a look at the terminology here. There is something called sponsored messaging, and there's two types. There are message ads and there are conversation ads. All right. At that level, they can actually be done on an individual basis. You don't need a LinkedIn company page, and you don't need your corporate marketing team to do that. So you can do those at an individual level. You then have sponsored content, which appears on the newsfeed, and this is all at a corporate level. So you can either have single image ads, you can have video ads, and you can have what LinkedIn called carousel ads. And then the third type of format are the pay-per-click ads, which are either called dynamic or text. So clearly we're a little bit limited on time here, but I just thought it would give you a flavor as to what each of those ads looks like and the benefits or the pros and cons to each different type. So we've got what, 3, 4, 5, 7 types of adverts there that you might be thinking about. And depending on your objectives for advertising, you're going to choose the ad format accordingly. So taking the first one, sponsored messaging. I've got 2 examples there. So there are 2 types of sponsored messaging. There are message ads and there are conversation ads. And I appreciate they might be a little bit small, but and that's obviously a mobile example. The left-hand side there is a message ad. So that allows you to send an extended message, very similar to an email, to people who meet your demographic criteria. And the one on the right-hand side is a conversation ad. And it's called a conversation ad because it effectively allows the recipient to choose their own path. They can choose different ways to reply to you. For example, they could sign up to a newsletter. They could subscribe to an event. They could just reply to that message accordingly. So as I put on the bullet points on the right-hand side there, these are at an individual level. These are not on the news feed. These will arrive in people's LinkedIn inboxes. So these are direct one-on-one messages. And as I say, the message ad on the left-hand side is for a single call to action. Conversation ad on the right-hand side is for multiple calls to action, and the recipient chooses their own response or their own path. Either of those are great for lead generation and brand awareness, and they're very good for things like ebooks, sign-up pages, newsletters, event registrations, etc. I've used those in my business. I've used message ads, the ones on the left-hand side, in my business, and I've had a huge amount of success with those because they're tailored. They're going to specific demographics that meet your criteria. It's not a manual exercise. So once you've set up the ad campaign, these will then be sent out to that targeted audience. So there's no manual process here. Once the campaign is up and running, these will then be sent out to people who meet your criteria. The other great thing about them is they are only opened when the person is on LinkedIn. Sorry, let me rephrase that. They're only sent to the person's inbox when the person is on LinkedIn. So they're guaranteed to see it. They're guaranteed to see that they've got a new sponsored message in their inbox. That's a really powerful way of targeting specific leads. And as I've used that in my business with quite a lot of success. We then have sponsored content. All right. And this is, as I said, on the right-hand side, only at a company level. So your company will need a LinkedIn company page on LinkedIn to do these. And there are 3 types. So there are image ads, and that's an example of that there, which you've all probably seen on your news feed. So this is all content that appears on users' news feeds. So you have image ads, you have video ads, which will look similar format to that, but it will be a short video. And then you have carousel ads, which essentially allows the person to scroll through multiple pages on the advert. So as it says there, these are native ads that appear in the news feed. Again, they can be targeted by all of those different filters we looked at earlier. And these are good for brand awareness. So they're okay for lead generation, but actually the more about your brand appearing on people's news feeds. That's what they're very good for, sponsored content. And then the final one are the pay-per-click ads, which I'm going to be absolutely honestly brutal. I absolutely hate. So one of the ways, again, LinkedIn make money. And again, those of you who are on LinkedIn, you will see these down the right-hand side, generally down the right-hand side of your LinkedIn homepage. So again, they're only at a company level. So you'll need a LinkedIn company page. There are 2 types. There are text ads, which is the top example, and there are dynamic ads, which is the bottom example. All right. The best thing they're good for are driving website traffic. They're not particularly visually appealing. They're not that exciting. They can drive calls to action, but they're more about people clicking on those for you to drive traffic to your website. So if you want my opinion, as I say, I don't work for LinkedIn. I think sponsored messaging is best, particularly at a B2B level, where you're looking to target other business professionals who are going to be interested in whatever you've got to say. Sponsored content is around generally driving traffic to your website. And then the boring pay-per-click ads, again, more about driving traffic to your website.
Graham, shall I do a quick ask people if they've used sponsored messaging?
Sure.
We're going to ask that now. Have you used sponsored messaging yourself to reach out to customers? To me, it seems a very effective, channel of being targeted.
Yep.
PCD has used pay-per-click ads before, and they've never really yielded anything. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm going to come on to some of the costs of this in a moment, actually, which might build the business case even more.
So interesting responses there. So only 2 people out of 64 at the moment have actually used sponsored messaging. So I think that would be a clear one for people to explore further, what the parameters are around that kind of targeted messaging could be, and to learn more about that. Yeah.
So let me just cover off costs.
Yeah.
Because obviously this is the deal breaker: costs versus ROI. So unless you are familiar with some of this marketing terminology, I don't want to sound patronizing, but this can get rather technical and a little bit geeky. But I'll just try and break this down as best I can in the short time we've got left. So costs can be controlled by either setting either a total or daily budget, or by setting a bid on an auction basis. And this will make more sense in a moment. So you can set a total budget for your entire campaign, a daily budget. So you only want to pay LinkedIn X amount per day for your campaign, or you can set a bid on an auction basis, which we'll talk about in a moment. Depending on the ad format, you can either set a cost per click or a cost per 1,000 impressions. All right, cost per click, which is generally for lead generation. So this is for sponsored messaging that we were talking about a moment ago, is usually in the range of $2 to $8. Average of $5.26. I put this in dollars because that's what LinkedIn generally works in, but you can change it to your local currency once you set up a campaign. So for those sponsored messaging, David, that you just did that quick survey on, you're looking at an average of $5.26 to send one of those to somebody. So they're not cheap. They're not cheap at all. But taking this a little bit step further, cost per impression, or what are called CPMs, generally for brand awareness. So this is your sponsored content that appears on the newsfeed, and this is your pay-per-click. The average cost is $6.59 per 1,000 impressions. So you're not paying for one. This is about for every 1,000 times an advert appears on people's news feeds, the average cost is $6.59. All right, so it isn't cheap, LinkedIn advertising. However, we just take it a step further. If you want my advice for a good quality campaign with a significant reach, you probably need a budget of between $2,000 and $5,000 per month, which equates to a daily spend of between $66 and $165 per month. But for individuals out there, it may be the case that you spend $2,000 per month just for 1 month. And actually, that's not a huge budget. If you can experiment with this for 1 month and you see a return within 1 month, then it's reasonably economical. But if you're looking to run a 12-month campaign, then you need a significant marketing budget to do this. For sponsored messaging, so those in-mail messages that appear in people's inboxes, you should expect an open rate of around 60 to 65%. All right, so 60 to 65% of people are going to open it. And then whatever you've got within that message, whether it's an article, whether it's a sign-up page, whether it's an event, you have a click-through rate of between 4 and 6%. So 60 to 65% of people who receive it open it. And of those 60 to 65%, around 4 to 6% will do something with it. And then for sponsored content, the average click rate is around 3.5%. Okay. And for pay-per-click ads, so those little tiny ads you see on the right-hand side, a click rate of 0.03% is considered very high. So that's just some basic parameters around costs and expectations in terms of what you should expect from on clicks and exposure. So it isn't cheap. It's worth experimenting with. As I said right at the start of today, for most LinkedIn users, the free functionality is more than enough. Take out a Sales Navigator subscription, take it out for 29 days. It's not cost you a penny. The advertising works for large corporates. It can work at an individual level if you've got a little bit of a budget to spend. All right. And I just thought I'd just wrap this up just with an example of the ROI on this. So it's a few years old now. So this was AIG in the US, who did a broad section of advertising back in 2015 and 2016. And LinkedIn have just put on their website some of the results that AIG had from this. And I think the interesting one, the second one down on the left, so over 100,000 relevant professionals were reached through their LinkedIn inboxes over 6 months, and that was through the sponsored messaging. So they targeted over 100,000 professionals. They had 270,000 new followers to their LinkedIn company page. And bottom right, they had over 68,000 social engagements, and that was people commenting on AIG content on the newsfeed. So, clearly that doesn't relate to new assets under management. That is about exposure and clicks and website traffic, etc. We don't know what the new assets under management were as a result.
There's a few comments saying about the cost of these campaigns, and just that it's very high, and you know, to have a budget for an individual professional is sort of out of line. And what I would say to that is that just taking out the Navigator at, what is it, 69 a month or something like that, £70 a month, can just give you a tool to help find other connections and contacts for your networking that in this environment you would have no other option to do. And I mean, I've been a Navigator subscriber for many years, and it's helped build I haven't used any of the campaign stuff. All I've done is simply used it to expand the number of people I'm connected to. So I think people who don't have a budget for this kind of 2,000 to 5,000 a month, like, right, we want to do brand building, at a very basic level, it can just be a way to expand their Rolodex at using the, £70 a month.
That's right. And actually, I should have said earlier, that £70 per month is discounted if you pay on an annual basis. And then it equates to around, I think, about £58 per month if you pay on an annual basis. And so for a lot of LinkedIn users, that's equivalent to what, a Sky TV subscription or a cable TV subscription if you're in the US. So it's not massive, £600-700 per year. I imagine if most people on the call could sign up 1 or 2 new clients, that's probably more than paid for itself. So yeah, you're right, David. Sales Navigator far more economical than advertising by far. And at the moment, if firms are not spending as much as they used to on marketing, then clearly advertising isn't for them. But it's good for people to be aware of what advertising can do.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just got a couple here. So click rates available on LinkedIn reported by demographics, so you can access. So sorry, I'm just trying to read on the hoof. One question from George Maltby. If you cancel LinkedIn Premium, does it mean the contacts saved in list disappear? And if you resubscribe, would those lists be there? How does that?
They would be there if you resubscribe with the same email address.
Okay.
If you subscribe with a different email, then LinkedIn clearly thinks you're a different person, and you would lose them. Okay.
So that's how they keep you on the hook.
Yeah.
Another question from Sylvia down at JTC in Monaco, just saying, do you know why when posting an article, the visualizations are exponentially less than simply? So when you post something with a visual attached to it, like a photo or a video, why is it so much more impactful?
Just because people like the imagery, just visually looks a little bit more appealing.
Okay. I think that's it for the questions, unless there's any more questions in the chat. Did you have any concluding comments, Graham?
No, not really. I think I've covered everything. Like I said, there was some appetite for people to understand advertising. It works in the right circumstance, and clearly you need a budget and you need very specific objectives, or the costs can run away with you. Like I say, experiment with Sales Navigator, take it out for 29 days and cancel it. But as I say, if you pay on an annual basis, it can be significantly cheaper. And yeah, that's about as much as I wanted to cover, David, today.
Okay, great. So we're coming, Graham and I are partnering on some more training like this. We've had a fantastic response to this webinar. I think we've still got 81 people on at the end of the hour, which is terrific. So this was just a taster of what we can do on the paid for sections. We're going to be coming up, the slides are available. If you click on the handouts tab above the chat, you can take the slides away. So if you click on the handouts, I will also email them round, but those slides are available. Graham and I will send out an email with more information on the product proposition, the training that we're going to offer together in the coming months. So more to follow on that. And yeah, thank you, Graham, for participating, for showing our members a walkthrough, just the briefest insight. There's many more bits of functionality to show and to demonstrate, and we look forward to working together with you in the coming months.
Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody.
Just to play us out, we've got Gary V, who is a LinkedIn phenomenon, and we've got an interesting little video from LinkedIn. So just to play us out, I am going to play that video. Do stick around and watch. I'll be in the chat for the next few minutes. Feel free to join us. I will just play the video from Gary V now.
You have to do video. You don't have to do audio. You don't have to do written word. As a matter of fact, my highest over-indexing content on LinkedIn right now is comic strips. We have so many things to talk about in this world that we all kind of live in. Number one, actually back to, remember, I'm glad I got to this. I forget so many things usually. Improv has its strengths and weaknesses. This is very meta. If you follow, how many people here follow my content just for context? Thank you. Okay, it's great. So most don't. So listen. No, that's what I thought. There's a lot of people here. This is wild, and if you don't know me, which is why I asked, you may think it's a plug, but let me be very much on the record. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, the NFL, orange juice, I have no emotion for anything. I care about nothing except the end consumer. But with that preface, there's a very remarkable thing going on for the far majority of people in this room. For the last year, I've been yelling on LinkedIn and many other platforms that LinkedIn is a really good place to put content. Right as we sit here today, the far majority of people's issue for their business. How many people own their business? Or the CEO? Raise your hands. Okay, not that many. You should consider it. It's fun. No, I'm just kidding. But for the people that run marketing or make decisions or influence decisions, LinkedIn over the last 6 months to a year, and I don't know when this algorithm changes and when the supply and demand of attention and content changes, which is what happens to all these platforms. My favorite place for the last 4 years, Instagram is going through it right now. For all the biggest content producers, especially personalities, the organic decline has just started. It's about to get nasty. A lot of influencers are gonna get a job. Anyway, LinkedIn right now is going through a Facebook 2012 moment. You right now have a business or trying to build a profile or trying to communicate something to the world, have no followers on LinkedIn, produce content, and the organic reach and consumption is remarkably high. It will go away, they always do. It went away on MySpace, it went away on Facebook, it goes away everywhere. It's supply and demand of attention. So one thing I definitely wanted to get across before I got off here, content, communication, not your personal brand. Think of it a different way. Your reputation, it matters. A lot of you are still trading on your reputation because you've been doing it a long time. Reputation is getting built at scale in LinkedIn for B2B businesses, which have never really had a home for content like they do now. And just being obsessed with overbringing value, I implore you to dig into this hypothesis, get educated, and remember, when you produce content, you don't have to do video, you don't have to do audio, you don't have to do written word. As a matter of fact, my highest over-indexing content on LinkedIn right now is comic strips that I create from the things I talk about in the feed. It's working. GIFs, memes, unemotional about how we communicate. We used to draw in caves. People used to do smoke signals. I do not mind how people, unlike the far majority of this room and world, I do not judge how one wants to consume content. I just react to the truth. And in that truth at this moment, not next year, not last year, at this exact second, there's a huge arbitrage of organic reach within LinkedIn that I have a funny feeling will help you get something that you want, whatever that may be. And oh, by the way, as humans, where many of you may have your side hustle, if you're selling cupcakes or your fitness program or hair extensions, LinkedIn, which is wild. Watching it become Facebook in there instead of just B2B has been phenomenal. So highly recommend that. That's another side note. Let's talk about a couple other